What are some other good questions you think to ask your local rancher, just if you're trying to vet this person and figure out if that's who you want to source food from?
Well, I think a lot about the grass-fed claim because as a grass-fed, grass-finished beef producer, I'm aware acutely of the challenges of doing that, really doing that. And so my main thing would be like, hey, how are you feeding your cattle? Oh, they're on grass. Okay, what? Like dry hay? Bullshit. You're not growing calves on last year's dry hay. What are your cattle eating? And I've heard of people getting a grass-fed ration from a feed mill that is, a sunflower meal, cottonseed, maybe some other stuff blended in that maybe isn't grain, but it's not really, maybe not consistent with. And so, and I'm not even like demonizing that. I'm just saying like, you need to know, if and you need to know, but you also need to understand that like your ideals may not always be achievable. When there are droughts and I've got 90 calves on my place I've got to feed, I'm going to buy beet pulp and alfalfa, and I'm going to mix that with whatever hay I can find in our big feed mixer. We chop that stuff up, and I might even put a little cane molasses in there because it's rich in electrolytes and it helps them with the heat. And that's what we do in that scenario, right? Because you got to do something. And I've talked to other producers that are like, oh, I got this grass-fed. They said it's grass-fed approved. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, they don't want to know, right? And so I just think it's important that, like, that you ask questions if you really, really, really care. Because in direct questions, because you may not get direct answers if you don't ask direct questions.
Yeah. I think it's a great, honest answer. And I think something that we've talked about this before, but something that drives Harry and I crazy are some of these health influencers that are armchair quarterbacks that have probably never really spent time at a ranch before, that are just like, oh, if it's not grass finished and regenerative, it's absolute bullshit, without having any understanding of droughts or just these conditions that pop up in the life of a rancher where you like literally cannot feed your cattle grass for the entirety of their life. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what do I do? Like face financial ruin and go get a job at Starbucks, or do I figure out a way to push through this tough time? And I think it's important for customers to understand all that stuff. But transparency between the farmer and the consumer is important, and that's something we value. And I try to on Instagram talk about, and on the website, like here's how we do what we do. And I get people to call me like, hey, do you vaccinate your cattle? Yeah. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Oh, fine. I don't want to lie to anybody, but yeah, it's tough.